Hi, this is Don McAllister, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Something different this week, as I'd like to welcome a new presenter to Screencasts Online, Richard Baker. Now, Richard is a fellow Brit with lots of Mac and iOS experience, but he's now based in Australia working as a science teacher and e-learning coordinator. This week, Richard introduces us to a very powerful application both on the Mac and iOS, and that's Microsoft's OneNote. So, over to Richard.
OneNote is an application from Microsoft that can be used for taking and organizing notes. In the past few years, Microsoft has made great strides in performance, reliability and features in OneNote for both platforms, and I'm really excited to take you through it. With OneNote, you can capture thoughts and ideas easily using all of your Apple devices. OneNote's freeform canvas gives you the ability to easily arrange and format your content using text, pictures, tables, files, and more. Capture ideas from the web and your hard drive using easy capture tools and share with colleagues. Work together in real time using a shared notebook and back up all this data using OneDrive in the cloud. So let's start off showing you how to download and install OneNote, starting with a Mac.